Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max. සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max. සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
The Spotless Glow Expert. Navapon's Bright Beauty Serum Cream.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Friday, the 16th of December 2022. Potential relief. India's central bank approves 5 Wasro accounts to Sri Lanka, which is based on Indian rupee trade settlement mechanisms. In cold blood. Director of Janashakti Group Dinesh Shafter dies under mysterious circumstances. Post-mortem reveals the death is due to strangulations. Investigations underway. One suspect slapped with a travel ban. Tourism promotion. Develop the Alla tourist zone according to comprehensive plan, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe to the officials. Grim warnings. South Asian region is the home to 9 out of 10 of the worst air polluted cities in the world, while the World Bank says there are cost-effective solutions to achieve clean air which require countries to coordinate policies and investments.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Anuradhi Wickremesinghe. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and thank you for joining us on First at 9. I'm Anuradhi Wickremesinghe. Our top story tonight, Director of Janashakti Group and prominent Sri Lankan businessman Dinesh Shafter died last night after he succumbed to injuries sustained after an assault. According to the police, he was found inside his vehicle, bound and strangled. The vehicle was discovered in the vicinity of the Borella Cemetery. Soon after he was discovered, Dinesh Shafter was admitted to the ICU at the Colombo National Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries. The subsequent post-mortem confirmed that strangulation was the cause of death. Police, CID and the scene of crime officers are investigating the matter. A former cricket commentator named Brian Thomas, whom Shafter is said to have met yesterday, was slapped with a travel ban while taking his mobile phone to CID custody.
Information uncovered by the police revealed that the director of Janashakti Group, Dinesh Shafter, left his residence in Flower Road, Colombo 7 yesterday at around 2 p.m. Before leaving, he informed the chief executive officer of one of his companies that he would meet Brian Thomas, a former cricket commentator. In 2019, Shafter complained to the CID against Thomas for financial fraud amounting to over 140 million rupees. Thomas was arrested in 2021 over the incident and was released on bail. It is reported that Thomas had borrowed the amount from Shafter, claiming it would be invested in a lending company in Sri Lanka. At around 2:48 p.m, Shafter shared his live location with his spouse and the CEO. The live location ended from the General Cemetery in Borella, and the wife of Shafter has informed this regard to the CEO. Following the information, he drove to Borella Cemetery in search of him. At around 3 p.m, the CEO found his car parked inside the cemetery with Shafter inside, bound with zip ties and a wire around his neck. Later, the employee, with the assistance of a cemetery labourer, freed Shafter and admitted him to the National Hospital in Colombo at around 3:15 p.m. Shafter, who was seriously injured at the time of admission, passed away at around 10:30 p.m. while receiving treatment at the hospital ICU. What the police suspect is that the victim may have been abducted and abandoned at the Borella Cemetery. The police have also found an electrical cord inside Shafter's car, and the CID is currently investigating it. Their investigations had also revealed that the cemetery labourer had witnessed an unknown individual walking away from Shafter's car. Further investigations of this incident were handed over to the scene of crime officers by the police headquarters, and a team inspected the crime scene this morning. The crime scene was also inspected by the acting magistrate of Halsdorf this afternoon. Meanwhile, the remains of the deceased businessman were produced before the chief medical officer at the Institute of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology. The post-mortem revealed that the death had occurred due to strangulation. So far, police have recorded statements from around 15 persons. The mobile phone of Brian Thomas was also taken into the custody of the CID. This evening, the Colombo Additional Magistrate Harshana Kakunuvela slapped a travel ban on Thomas following the consideration of a request made by the Barela police.
Now, a special meeting was convened today by Minister of Public Security Derana English to discuss the progress on the investigations related to the murder of Director Janashakti Insurance PLC Dinesh Shafter and the progress of investigations related to narcotics. The Inspector General of the Police and several other high-ranking police officers attended the meeting at the minister premises.
Several senior police officers, including the Inspector General of Police C.D. Vikramaratne, Senior DIG in charge of the Western Province Deshabandhu Tennakon, Commandant of Special Task Force DIG Waruna Jayasundara and the Head of the Criminal Investigation Department DIG Prasad Ranasinghe attended the special meeting chaired by the Minister of Public Security Derana English. At the meeting, the Minister advised the senior officers to take all possible measures to solve ongoing murder investigations while also taking steps to conduct successful anti-narcotic raids. The Minister also inquired on the progress of the investigation into the murder of the Director of Janashakti Insurance, Dinesh Shafter, during the meeting, while also looking into the progress of studies on crimes related to narcotics. Advising the officers, the Minister went on to state that there is tremendous pressure exerted on the general public by organised crime syndicates which distribute narcotic drugs and commit murders, while also stating that measures should be taken to remove members of such organisations from society.
As many major countries grapple with a host of macroeconomic challenges, particularly pertaining to international trade, the Indian rupee trade settlement mechanism seems to be attracting the interest of more nations worldwide. The system, which is already used by Russia to circumnavigate the sanctions placed by the West following the invasion of Ukraine, has also sparked the interest of Sri Lankan authorities as a mode of easing pressures on the already dwindling Sri Lankan foreign reserves.
India's rupee trade settlement mechanism, a means of using rupees instead of dollars and other big currencies for international transactions, is attracting interest from more countries. According to reports, Tajikistan, Cuba, Luxembourg and Sudan have begun talks with India on using the mechanism. The mechanism set up by the Reserve Bank of India in July has already been used by Russia following the imposition of sanctions on Moscow over the Ukraine war. Official sources claim that the Indian government is looking to bring countries that are short on dollars into the mechanism. The four countries have shown interest in opening special rupee accounts called Vostro accounts, but as documents showed, partner banks in India have not yet approved those facilities. Mauritius and Sri Lanka have also shown interest and have seen their special Vostro accounts approved by RBI. India's central bank has given approval to banks to open 12 Vostro accounts for trade in rupees with Russia, while 6 other accounts, including 5 for trade with Sri Lanka and 1 for trade with Mauritius.
The South Asian region is the home to 9 out of 10 worst air polluted cities in the world. The World Bank says due to the pollution, it causes an estimated 2 million premature deaths across the region each year and incurs significant economic costs. However, they say that there are economically feasible, cost-effective solutions to achieve clean air in the region, but this requires countries to coordinate policies and investments. Air pollution was a topic of discussion in Sri Lanka in the past few weeks as its air quality was significantly affected with the entrance of India's polluted air to the country's atmosphere through winds. As of now, the situation has improved and skies are gradually turning clear. However, Sri Lankan authorities say such situations which are beyond the control of the government cannot be tackled alone. In this backdrop, the World Bank, in its latest report, Striving for Clean Air, Air Pollution and Public Health, says that large industries, power plants and vehicles are dominant sources of air pollution around the world. However, in South Asia, other sources including combustion of solid fuels for cooking and heating emissions from small industries such as brick kilns, burning of municipal and agricultural waste, and cremation make substantial additional contributions. The report highlights that exposure to such extreme air pollution has impacts ranging from stunting and reduced cognitive development in children to respiratory infections and chronic and debilitating diseases. This drives up healthcare costs, lowers a country's productive capacity, and leads to lost days worked. The report analyzes scenarios to reduce air pollution with varying degrees of policy implementation and cooperation among countries. The most cost-effective scenario, which calls for full coordination between airsheds, would cut the average exposure of PM2.5 in South Asia to 30 micrograms per cubic meter air at a cost of $278 million per microgram per cubic meter air of reduced exposure, and save more than 750,000 lives annually. Under Phase 1, setting the condition for airshed-wide coordination by expanding the monitoring of air pollution beyond the big cities, sharing data with the public, creating or strengthening credible scientific institutes that analyze airsheds, and taking a whole-of-government approach is mentioned. Under Phase 2, the World Bank says abatement interventions are broadened beyond the traditional targets of power plants, large factories and transportation. According to the World Bank, major progress can be made in reducing air pollution from agriculture, solid waste management, cook stoves, brick kilns and other small firms during this phase. Under Phase 3, the World Bank says economic incentives are fine-tuned to enable private sector solutions to address distributional impacts and to exploit synergies with climate change policies. In this phase, they say trading of emission permits can also be introduced to optimize abatement across jurisdiction and firms. President Ranil Wickremesinghe instructed officials to take immediate steps to develop the Alla tourist area according to a comprehensive plan that would benefit the tourism industry. During a meeting with the Alla Businessmen's Association today, the President informed the officials to prepare the relevant development plan within 4 months with the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Urban Development and the Ministry of Environment and submit it to him.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is currently visiting the Badulla district, met with the Alla Businessmen's Association today.
අනික ලංකාවට බලන්න ඌව විතරක් නෙමෙයි. පුළුවන් නම් මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ දවස් 7ක් තියාගන්න. එක වැඩසටහනක් බලන්නේ නැගෙනහිර වෙරළ දියුණු කළා. දවස් කීපයක් එහෙත් ඉඳන් දවස් කීපයක් මෙහාට එන්න. පුළුවන් ද හම්බන්තොට ඉඳන් මෙහාට එන්න. ඇල්ලට. අන්න ඒකයි බලන්න අනාගතේ අපිට පුළුවන් නම් මත්තල දියුණු කරන්න. දැන් කණ්ඩායම් වෙනවා. ඉතින් මේක යම්කිසි කාලයක් යන එකක්. මෙතන ඉඳන් ආරම්භ කරගෙන අපි ඉදිරියට යමු. දැන් අර අතන කපොල්ල මොකක්ද කියන්නේ? කපොල්ල පැත්තේ දාන්න එපා. ඉතින් මං හිතන්නේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේක දාන තැන් පාලනය කරන්න. හැමතැනම හෝටල් දැම්මොත් මිනිස්සු එන්නේ නැහැ.
අපි ඉඩම හඳුනාගෙන තියෙනවා අක්කර 20ක වගේ අර ඩිසාස්ටර් ප්‍රිවෙන්ෂන් සයිට් එකක් විදිහට ඩෙවලොප් කරපු ඉඩමක්. අපි මොරටු යුනිවර්සිටි එකත් එක්කත් එතන පොඩි සර්ව් එකක් කරා. එයාලා
ඒ පෝච්චියේ මොනවද කරන්න ඉන්නේ?
මේකේ සර් කියන්නේ අපේ ලංකාවේ ටී හෙරිටේජ් එක ලෝකේ තියෙන සුවිශේෂීම හෙරිටේජ් එක.
ටී පොට් එකකින් කොහොමද කරන්නේ?
නෑ ටී පොට් එක සර් මේක මියුසියම් එකක්. ඇතුලේ කියන්නේ රිසර්ච් සෙන්ටර් එකක් විදිහට. අපි සර් වීඩියෝ එකක් තියෙනවා බලන්න.
මං කියන්නේ දෙකක්. මං අවුරුදු 70ක් හපුතලේට යන කරුණාකර එක නැති කරන්න එපා. ඔය ඉදුම තියනවා නම් වෙන එකක් කළා දෙන්න. ඔයා දාලා මේවා කරන්න එපා. මම හපුතලේ මේ තියෙන ස්වාභාවික මේක ඔයා දාලා නැති කරන්න එපා.
නෑ ඒකේ සර් මේ
මම නෑ කිව්වහම නෑ ඉවරයි. ඉතින් තව මම කාලේ වෙනස් කරන්න එපා.
Following the meeting, the President had a cordial discussion with the tourists.
What part of America?
From New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay.
Maryland.
First time here. So our first time in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So,
No, you come here and I go to Scotland for holiday.
Beautiful. That's right.
Go on and see Ravana's cave.
yeah. Oh,
Right.
okay.
We're first going to do Adam's, Little Adam's Peak.
Yep.
Okay, mini Adam's
Right now,
Peak.
first.
Yeah.
You
You're
can do
welcome to
that.
join us.
There's an update on cricketer Danushka Gunathilaka. The 31-year-old appeared in Sydney Downing Centre local court today after being charged with 4 counts of sexual intercourse without consent. He asked the court for permission to move into a 1-bedroom apartment while he wrestles with his lengthy legal battle ahead. Police allege the international cricket star matched with a woman on a dating app and they had chatted a number of times before they met on November 2nd when alleged sexual assault took place. Gunathilaka has not entered pleas to the 4 charges for sexual assault. Today, the court heard he wanted to change his bail conditions to allow him to live alone in Sydney after residing with a supporter. The international cricket star was granted bail last month with strict restrictions which included a ban on using dating applications or his existing social media profiles.
It's hard to keep up with the new when you're listening to the same old Slim Bread Week. A week for professionals.
Welcome back. German ambassador in Colombo, Holger Seubert, says national parks in Sri Lanka is an important element in the country's development as it attracts much-needed tourists to the country, which is beneficiary during this economic crisis. Speaking to media after an event at the Wilpattu National Park, the German envoy said that his embassy will promote national parks in the country, including Wilpattu, among German tourists, adding that Wilpattu will be one of the most attractive national parks in Sri Lanka in the future.
A mobile application dedicated to self-guiding tourist information, navigation and virtual tours was launched for the first time in Sri Lanka at the Wilpattu National Park recently. This application, that was developed together with the Wildlife Conservation Department and the German Agency for International Cooperation, includes features to enhance visitor experience like park information, interactive navigation, online rating systems and 360-degree virtual tours.
Developing national parks is of utmost importance to the development of this country, because what this country needs is tourists. And I know that many German tourists and European tourists as well are here in the region. They are visiting Anuradhapura and the cultural triangle, and it's so close to Vilpattu here. So they need an attractive national park, and that's what they get. Vilpattu National Park may be in future one of the most attractive national parks in this country, because, let me just mention another outcome of the project, this is the first national park with an app, with a digital platform, a website and an app. So you can be now guided by an app through this park. You know where the animals are, you know where the spots are, so you're always well informed. You can do a virtual tour if you want so. So this app is a game changer. So I will promote the Vilpattu National Park now within the German-speaking community here, and as well the German tourists. And I'm sure that other countries will do the same. The most important part of our project is that we are helping the local community to improve their livelihood, to increase their average income, because we need the communities in the influence zone to understand that eco-friendly tourism in protecting the wildlife and the natural park is actually good for this country. We eased our travel advice, so now everybody is free to come to this country, because we see that there are quite a number of improvements. We are still going through difficult times. I know there are still some problems remaining, but I hope this will be sorted out soon. So I personally and my embassy, we are now encouraging German tourists to come to this country, in particular to come to Vilpattu, and then move on to the cultural triangle.
The Sri Lanka Purchasing Managers Index compiled by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka indicated a contraction for the month of November owing to the downturn of economic activity locally and internationally. The monthly index, which is compiled subsequently to a survey conducted by the Central Bank, seeks to provide purchasing professionals, business decision makers and economic analysts with a timely set of data to accurately understand industry conditions. The index considers the performance of both the manufacturing and service sectors.
Sri Lanka Purchasing Managers Index for November 2022 indicated a setback in manufacturing activities on a month-on-month basis, recording an index value of 42.1. New orders and production remained contracted in November, mainly due to consumers' lack of purchasing power, particularly in the manufacture of food and beverages and textile and apparel sectors. Meanwhile, export-oriented manufacturers, particularly in textile and apparel sectors, highlighted that subdued demand was mainly due to the economic slowdown in major export destinations and shifting of orders to other countries amid stiff competition. Besides these, acquiring required raw materials was an issue for certain manufacturers due to a shortage of foreign exchange. Services Purchasing Managers Index recorded an index value of 49 in November 2022, up from 47.9 in October, yet remains slightly below the neutral threshold level. The rate of decline in service activities was softened with improvements observed in new businesses, business activities and expectations for activity. However, employment and backlogs of work declined during the month. New businesses improved in November 2022 compared to October 2022, particularly with increases observed in some financial services, insurance and other personal activities. Business activities in the service sector continued its increasing trend in November 2022 due to the upcoming festive season. Accordingly, business activities related to the personal activities, financial services and telecommunication subsectors showed improvements compared to the previous month. Further in line with the increase in tourist arrivals, business activities in accommodation, food and beverages subsector also increased. However, the wholesale and retail subsector declined further during the month amid continued cost of living challenges. Employment continued to fall in November due to increasing resignations, migrations and retirements, though few recruitments took place in several companies. Meanwhile, backlogs of work dropped at a faster pace during the month.
The ASPI closed in red as a result of price losses in counters such as Brown's Investments, Valuable One and Richard and Pierce and Company, with a turnover crossing 2.8 billion rupees. The index, which tracks the performance of all shares, stood at 8,739.50, down 0.84% from 8,813.84. Similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20, which recorded 2,795.71, down 0.5% from yesterday's 2,809.72. Crossings were witnessed in Expo Lanka Holdings, AXA and John Keel's Holdings, accounting for 44.9% of the turnover. Mixed interest was observed in Lanka IOC, Richard Pearce and Company and First Capital Treasuries, while retail interest was noted in Brown's Investments, LOLC Finance and First Capital Holdings. Furthermore, foreigners remained active, closing as net buyers. During the week, the ASPI and the S&P SL20 lost 1.2% and 1.1% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 2.33 billion rupees. Transportation sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, edged up by 0.12%. Now let's take a look at how the rupee has fared against the major currencies in the world. Oil dipped earlier today as the market assessed the aftermath of interest rate hikes at central banks, but was poised for the biggest weekly gains in 10 weeks amid supply disruption concerns and China's demand recovery hopes. However, oil benchmarks are on track for considerable gains since early October, with the closing down of the Keystone pipeline by the Canadian TC Energy Corporation subsequent to a leak.
Brent crude futures fell 0.2% to $81.07 per barrel by 7:28 a.m. GMT. West Texas Intermediate futures slipped 0.3% to $75.89. Both benchmarks fell 2% in the previous session as the dollar strengthened and central banks in Europe raised interest rates. Analysts claimed that the policy tightening by the Fed is already having an impact on industrial activity. But the oil benchmarks are on track for their biggest weekly gain since early October, with the market sentiment buoyed by potential tightness after Canada's TC Energy Company shut its Keystone pipeline following a leak and by the prospect of demand increasing in 2023. The International Energy Agency projects Chinese demand growth recovering next year after a 2022 contraction to 400,000 barrels per day. The agency raised its 2023 oil demand growth estimate to 1.7 million barrels per day. OPEC on Tuesday stuck to its forecast for global oil demand growth of 2.55 million barrels per day this year and 2.25 million barrels per day in 2023 after several downgrades, saying that while economic slowdown was quite evident, there was potential upside, such as from relaxation of China's zero-COVID policy.
And that is all from us at First at 9. Join us again tomorrow for more. Stay tuned for World News Tonight with Suzanne Shanali. Thank you for watching and have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.